26. At this time, I'd like to call our City Council meeting to order. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and invocation will be given by 6th Ward Council Member Will Forgrave.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. What? No interruptions.
I'd ask that everybody please take a moment of silence to pray or meditate or reflect how you see fit. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, if you would proceed with the roll call.
Mayor Mahoney,
Present.
Vice Mayor Robinson,
Present.
Councilmember Dancy,
East Side,
Councilmember Gunn,
Present.
Councilmember Schlechte. Here. Councilmember Bennell,
Here.
Councilmember Forgrave.
Here.
Thank you very much. And next item on the agenda is looking for a motion and support to adopt the agenda. And would just like to add for one item to be added under presentations and proclamations, for a proclamation to be presented to our dear friend, Councilmember Bennell.
I'll make a motion to add that as 5.2, plus I'd like to add 10.6, extreme ownership, 10.7, Optimus Park, 10.8, special assessment,
Dang.
and 10.9, rooming house.
Hold on, because I'm gonna need you to repeat that for me. Hold on 2 seconds.
10.6, extreme ownership, 10.7, Optimus Park, 10.8, special assessments, 10.9, rooming house fees.
I wasn't ready yet. I don't know if everybody else got that.
Let me do it again.
Please.
5.2 is Bennell. 10.6, extreme ownership.
10.6.
10.7, Optimus Park.
How about if I turn it on? That
There
would
we
help.
go.
Okay, 10.6 extreme ownership, 10.7 Optimus Park, 10.8 special assessments, 10.9 rooming house fees. Rooming house fees. That was the motion. And second. We need a second.
Okay. Motion's been moved and supported. Is there any discussion? Seeing or hearing none, clerk will tally and display the vote.
Oh, they can tell me. I think you're fine.
Okay. I'm not sure how quickly or if they will appear on the agenda, but we've got a 10.6, 7, 8, 9, and the addition of 5.2 added, and the agenda has been Unanimously passed. That brings us down to item number 5, presentations and proclamations. 5.1 Gov HR, review of recent wage study.
I'm here.
So, Mr. Mayor, we have Joe Ellen from GovHR joining us tonight to go over the wage study, classification study, and answer any questions council may have. And I'll turn it over to Joe Ellen right now.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Can you see me?
Yes, we can.
I'm going to share my screen. You have a copy of the report. I have a brief presentation to go through for you, which just highlights what we were asked to do and then the different findings as a result of the class and comp study. And I want to thank you for engaging us to do this, and also I want you to know that working with the staff in Jackson has been terrific. Everyone has been very forthcoming with information, and we really need that in order for us to do our work. So I did want to let you know that.
Her name is
So
Joe.
what were we asked to do? I'll talk
So,
about
Joe Allen,
work,
I'm sorry. I just wanted to,
job evaluation.
Joe Allen, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to make a quick comment just for clarification
sorry.
for our, excuse me, just for clarification for our citizens that wage study is not in this agenda packet. It would be in the previous meeting's agenda packet because it's not in here as an attachment. I'm sorry, Joe Allen.
Oh, no, thank you. So what I'll go over tonight is the work we're asked to perform on behalf of the city, the job evaluation process, the proposed classification plan, the compensation and benefit survey that we conducted, the proposed compensation plan, how you would implement it and then manage it going forward. And of course, I'll answer any questions that you may have. So we were asked to conduct a classification and compensation study for the city. And so there's two parts to it. One is the job evaluation piece, and the other part is the compensation survey and the benefit survey. So to do the first part of it, we worked with the staff. We had some preparation meetings. We determined comparable communities to Jackson in order to survey for compensation and benefits. We had some employee meetings, we distributed material, we talked about the study, what it is, what it isn't, and then we asked the employees to fill out a questionnaire about the work that they perform. We then went through what we call a job analysis process, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, and we developed a classification plan, which is essentially the list of all of the positions that were covered by this study in a new plan in different grades. And then the second part was going out to the market. You know, we determined comparable communities. We put together a survey of positions and some benefits. We sent it out, we gathered data. And so we gave a draft report. Now you have the final report. And I'm here tonight to just give you the overview again and answer any questions that you have. So when you do job evaluation, you want to look at positions in the city in relation to each other. Because as you know, you can have an employee in a particular job or classification that if they went to a different community, even though they might have the same title, some of the duties might be different. So by asking employees what they do, by asking them to answer questions about these 9 different job factors, we can then look at all of the positions in Jackson in relation to one another and create a classification plan. So on this list here, you know, every position has some type of level of education needed, years of experience. They have to exercise judgment. You know, some people supervise. There's always a technological component. So we ask each person to fill out a questionnaire, and then we interview people and we talk about their different positions. So what that allows us to do is to look at the jobs in relation to each other and develop a plan, which is called a classification plan. And what it creates is what we call internal equity, because we're comparing all of the positions in Jackson to one another, and internal equity ends up equaling pay equity. So that's the first part of the study, and it's really important because we want to make sure that it's very unique to Jackson. So this methodology we can use for all positions in local government in different states, but we want to really understand the work in Jackson so we can create a plan that will work for you. So during the job evaluation process, we have the employees fill out a questionnaire, and then we interview at least one person with each job title, so we can really understand how the work is performed. We then develop that classification plan. It's in your report as table 1. So if you're looking at if you have a printed version of the report, it's on page 23. If you look at the PDF version, it's on page 26. So that establishes internal equity. It's what drives your study because it's unique to the city. And then in some cases, we could make some title change recommendations that might better reflect what someone is doing. So that was the first part of the study. The second part was looking at the market and making sure that your pay is competitive and that your benefits are competitive. Because as you know, especially in the past few years, you want to make sure you're attracting and retaining really great people because, the jobs are important, the service is important. So what we do is we go through an analysis to determine comparabilities. And you can see on this list here, most of the criteria that we use are financial. So we have the equalized assessed value, the per capita income, the total expenditures, state sales tax, indebtedness, and property tax revenue. We also look at proximity and population because you wouldn't compare, to a community that's in northern Michigan. You're not going to, you may recruit a department head, but probably not your regular, frontline employees. So when we make a recommendation to you, we want to look at communities that are similar from these criteria because it really helps translate into ability to pay. So we just don't pick random communities. We actually go through an analysis. And in your report, there's a few appendices. The first one, Appendix A, was that questionnaire that I talked about that we gave to the employees. The second one is this analysis. So if you're interested in looking at exactly how we did that, it's in Appendix B. But these are the communities that we determined to be comparable to Jackson. And you can see that there's a weight and there's a total score. And you had quite a few that scored over 80 points, which is really good. That means that they're very comparable. Sometimes when we do studies, maybe it might be in a different location, maybe more rural. We might have to go down to 70 or 60 points. So the fact that you have all of these communities scoring 80 points or higher is very positive. So these are the communities from which we requested information about compensation and benefits. When we do a study, there's just a few things I want to point out. First is we can't survey for every position. So we pick benchmark positions, ones we will find in other communities, and we define them. And the reason for that is because if you go to another community, some positions have the exact same title, but others don't, so we want to make sure we're getting the right data. We look at the data, we make sure it is relevant data. If it's not, sometimes we might remove a few data points. So in the appendix, in the report Appendix C that has all of the salary data, you can see if we disagreed with something, we highlighted it, we removed it, and we showed our work. So we look at it very carefully. And we really try to use what we're given from other communities because they're reading the definitions and they're saying, yes, this is our comparable position. But once in a while, something pops up and we know it's not a comparable position and we may remove it. The other thing is we try to use salary range data in our analysis as opposed to an actual salary. And the reason for that is if you have a range, it's a better gauge of the market. If you only have an actual salary, then you don't know the market conditions under which someone was hired, nor do you know their tenure. So range data is a better type of information to use in an analysis. And then when we do the study, we pick a snapshot in time. So if you're going to do a survey for salary and benefits, you say, okay, here's the time period that we're doing it, and we gather information. You know, sometimes a community may be a year behind. Maybe they have a situation where they haven't awarded a general increase, but that is irrelevant when you do a survey, because if you had an employee in Jackson that decided to take a position in that community, that's the market at that time. That's the range for the position. So it is a snapshot in time. And then the last thing is we did gather some data for benefits. You can see we had some paid leave, longevity, and a few other benefits. So we looked at that as well. What you have in your report too are some other tables. So there is the narrative, and then there's a few tables. So table 2 and table 3. Table 2 is on page 25 of the report. Table 3 is on page 27 of the printed version, and then 28 and 30 of the PDF. But when we looked at the compensation, we calculated pay ranges at the 75th percentile. And what that means is, from the comparable communities, 25% of the communities pay more for the same position and 75% pay less. And the reason why that's important is at the 75th percentile, if your philosophy is there and you establish yourself as a payer there, you're above average. You become more of an employer of choice, and you're in a better position to attract and retain better talent. So it's a really great place to be if you embrace that philosophy. So that's what you see on table 2 as far as the ranges, and then table 3 is just the calculation of the ranges with the gradation and the range spread, which I'll talk about in a moment. But we developed 13 ranges. Actually, there's a separate band for the city manager, which is just data, but in the classification plan, there's 13 different grades. And you can see here that 3 of them are assigned to what we would call administrative and technical positions. And then grades 4 through 9 are supervisors and advanced technical. And then grades 10 through 13 are your directors and senior managers. So we put the positions in bands based on the type of job. And then we look at the data within each of those bands and we calculate ranges and we recommend the pay ranges. So gradation and range spread are the 2 things that we can use to look at the data and try and match the market. And by calculating in those bands that I just talked about, we have a better ability to do that. So the gradation is the difference in starting pay between the grades. So you can see here, grades 1 through 3, the gradation is 5%. So what that means is grade 2 starting pay is 5% higher than grade 1. Grade 3 is 5% higher than grade 2. The gradation jumps to 7.5% for those middle grades, and then grades 10 through 13 have an 8.5% gradation. And then the range spread is the difference from minimum pay to maximum pay. So again, you can see it's a little bit different. And the theory behind that is if I'm coming into the city in a position in grade 1 or 2, it's more of an entry-level position, and it's likely I'll start at the lower end of the range. But if I'm coming into the city in a position in grade 12, that means I'm at a director or senior management level, and you may bring that person in a little higher into the range because they have some experience. So you want to have a broader range so people have the ability to have increased compensation over time. So you can see that it ranges from 30%, 35%, and 40% as you go up into the compensation plan. And then the information we collected for the city manager position, we did do that, and we have a recommended range. The position is not classified because it's a direct report to you, but we did look at data, so you have that as a guide going forward. On the benefits survey, we looked at benefits in relation to paid leave, longevity, and then a few others. A wellness program, do other communities have that? Do they have a performance bonus system or volunteer benefit? And, what we find a lot of times is that they are comparable. Your benefits are comparable. There are some variations, nothing that gave me any pause, but in the narrative of the report, we talk about those minor variations, and then Appendix D of the report has the data. So if anybody wants to look at, what is the paid leave in all these other communities, you can see the actual detail. And then going forward on the classification side, I've worked with staff. They understand how to classify jobs. You know, there's a manual that you have. You have that to maintain your system. HR can maintain the system with administration. And in the future, you know, if you're looking at that classification plan and making sure, you know, if a position needs to be added, changed, abolished, if you do that, it will last you for a long time, 5, 10 years or more. You know, the only reason why a plan would not be relevant is if you had explosive growth or if you didn't maintain it. So you know, if you're not, if you're maintaining and if you're making sure that you're addressing any changes on an annual basis, it will last you for a very long time. And then on the compensation side, you know, we went through a process to establish comparable communities. So when budget is being developed, all you really need to do is send an email to those communities and say, hey, you know, are you adjusting your ranges? Are you giving a general increase? And if you look at all of the responses, you take an average and you do the same thing in Jackson and you adjust those ranges, you will stay competitive with the market. So it's a quick exercise to do every year during budget to make sure that your pay is competitive. So that's my general overview of the study. I will stop sharing my screen and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. Thank you, Joe Allen. Council, what questions do we have?
I've got a couple. On page 46 of the printed materials, the graph has a number divided /0. I don't know if anybody else's, but it's like it didn't print right. The formula
Well,
printed.
it's because there's no data above it, probably. You said page 46. Let me just look at it really
Yeah.
fast.
I just want to make sure.
Yeah, that's in one of the appendices. Right, so Appendix C has the data, page 46, yeah, so on that, that's the paralegal position. There's no, we didn't get any data from the market, so
Okay.
if you look at the page before it, you can see the math. And so there's figures there because there's data. But on the paralegal, we have none, so it gives, there's a formula embedded in there, so it gives an error because there's no data. That's all. I mean, I could remove that, but
No, that's okay. I just want to make sure that
Yeah.
it printed correctly.
No, it's correct.
Okay. So my questions are, did you find any unnecessary positions or any positions that could be combined, especially when an employee retires or leaves?
So, that wasn't the goal of the study. You know, that would be a different type of staffing analysis or organizational analysis. I think, if you do have a vacancy, I think what you would want to do is actually ask that question. And if there's a way, say you have a vacancy and you say, you know what, we're gonna take these responsibilities and send them over to 2 different people and add it to other positions. You can do that, but then, as I talked about maintaining your classification plan, you wanna make sure that if there's a significant change in the responsibility of that job, that job may need to be reclassified. So while we didn't look at an organizational, it wasn't staffing analysis or anything like that, you can do that with this system should a vacancy arise in the future.
Okay. And then when you're evaluating the salaries of the individuals or the classifications, does the salary include the benefits or the benefits separate? It's just the dollar amount that they walk home at the end of the day with?
Right, this is just the base salary. The benefits are in addition to the base salary.
And then my last question is a simple one. Do any other communities offer incentives for living within the city to their employees?
I've never seen that. I've never studied it, so I should qualify my response. But I have never been asked to even put that on a benefit survey. So it's never come up, and I've done many studies. So not aware of that being an incentive anywhere else.
Okay. Thank you.
Council, what other questions do we have?
So I just have a question about the the cities that you chose. So you talked about the comparison criteria. Can you explain that again? What you looked at to compare Jackson to these other cities besides the population size?
So
What variables?
the important thing when you do that type of analysis is you want to have source data. So at the beginning of Appendix B, there's a scoring sheet, and it goes through the different criteria, how they're weighted, and where we got the information. And so, we look at population and proximity, because you're not going to, compare to a community that's very much bigger or very, a lot smaller. And then we look at other sourced data. So we wouldn't try and pull in a criteria where I couldn't say to you, if you want to see where we got the data, I'm getting it from a million different locations. I'm going to say you can go to this source. So we look at population, and then we looked at other things that are kept in a database for Michigan communities. So taxable value, total general fund expenditures, per capita income, total property tax revenue, total wages, long-term debt. So those were the things that we looked at, which are in Appendix B of the report. And then where we received it was the Michigan Department of Treasury. We looked at the Michigan Community Financial Dashboard 2021 for the taxable value. And then the U.S. Census Bureau does have like a per capita income population. And then for proximity, we use Google Maps.
Thank you.
Council, what other questions do we have? So, Joe Ellen, I think my major question is, at least in my mind, our goal was to try to figure out, with inflation and all other things considered, are we comparable in compensation for the positions that we have or not? This is a very in-depth and phenomenal work that you've done, and thank you for the presentation. I guess, can you just explain in some of the recommendations that you've made? I don't directly see an answer to that in particular. Like if we're if we are in a comparable position to other communities, if there are any increase or decrease recommendations that we should consider based on the report that you've given us.
So on Table 2, which is on page 25 of the printed version, 28 of the PDF, there is a column that has current salary in relation to the proposed salary range. And if you look at that, you'll see that the majority of employees have a current salary that's within the proposed range, which means that they're paid at market. Now, they may be a long-term employee that's at the bottom of the range, but at least they're in the range. That means that their current salary is somewhere in that market value. You do have some employees that their current salary is above the maximum. There's just a handful of those, and you have a few more employees where their current salary is below the minimum of the range that we're recommending. So to implement the study, the most basic thing to do is to make sure that anybody that's current salary is below the minimum for the range, they should come up at least to that minimum, because what it's telling us is that their current salary is below market. Conversely, for the few employees, I think there's maybe 5, if I'm looking at this pretty quickly, 6, 7, 8, 9, no, there's, maybe 9, that are above the maximum. We don't know why that is. Sometimes the market value for the position changes. Sometimes the job is reclassified as a result of this, saying, the value we want to have in Jackson is here in our classification plan, but the market might say otherwise. So in those cases, if you have an employee whose current pay is above the maximum, you don't want to reduce it because they had nothing to do with that. The individual employee had nothing to do with that happening. So what will happen over time is if you keep the pay where it is, the range, you will adjust it, like I talked about before, if you survey other communities, that say they're giving an annual increase of 3%, that range is going to continue to move over time, and eventually that employee's pay will fall back in. And then you can give them some general increases. There's more strategies, that you can employ depending on exactly how you would want to implement it, but that's a very basic recommendation of what you could do.
Okay, so again, just for clarification, the green is below minimum.
Correct.
Okay.
And the red is above maximum.
That's in table 2.
Yeah, I got that, but
And then the proposed salary range is on the, all the way to the right-hand side in that particular
I see.
column.
So comparing current salary column to the proposed salary range.
Correct.
Okay, instead of the one to the left of it. What's the one to the left of it? Current says.
That's your current salary range.
That's what we currently have, that's what we have.
Correct. Yeah, I'm looking at this again. There's one in red that looks like it should be black, but the rest of them look good. Look accurate. That are highlighted.
Okay, I see that. Okay.
So on the police and fire, our director is in charge of both.
Our director's in charge of both departments. Was that true in other communities?
That's not as common, I mean, there are public safety directors for sure, but it's not as common. And I'd have to go back to the survey data to see if we've been surveyed because of the unique nature of the job. But, so, in my experience, when you have that situation, you might have some other people in the department that focus on one area or the other, and then the chief is overseeing everything. But it's not. I don't know how common it is in Michigan, but in other parts of the country, it's not that common.
Just want to make sure he's being compensated for both jobs.
Yes, and of course, because it goes back to what we talked about. You can see that's one of the highest scoring positions because we do look at the nuances of the job to make sure that it's getting credit for that, for the span of work that is being requested of the employee, what the work that's assigned to the position.
Council, is there any other questions? Joellen, if any additional questions should arise, is it okay if we funnel those questions through city manager or our HR department?
Of course.
Okay. Everybody good? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome. It's been a pleasure working with everyone, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, that brings us to item, if you refresh your screens also, that will update your agenda. That brings us to item 5.2, proclamation for Councilmember Karen Bunnell. Just want to quickly read this proclamation. This is officially Councilmember Karen Bunnell's last meeting, unless she has a quick change of heart tonight and wants to withdraw that resignation somehow. Whereas Councilmember Karen Bonnell has proudly proudly represented Ward 5 in the city of Jackson for the past 2 years, and whereas Councilmember Bonnell is a dedicated public servant, always working to improve the quality of life for her constituents and the residents of the city of Jackson, and whereas in addition to her responsibilities as Councilmember, Karen has served on the Citizen Police Oversight Committee, and whereas the city's Public Arts Commission benefited from the steadfast leadership offered by Karen, and whereas Councilmember Bonnell has consistently supported the city's ongoing downtown development to promote economic growth in Jackson, and now therefore be it proclaimed, we, the members of City Council of Jackson, Michigan, do hereby thank Karen Bonnell for 2 years of loyal service to the city of Jackson, and wish her well in her future endeavors, and witness here whereof we have hereunto set our hands and caused the seal of the city of Jackson to be affixed on this 26th day of September 2023.
He's making sure this everything's getting broadcast just fine.
Feeling all those comments. Okay. Brings us down to item number 6, public hearing. 6.1, conduct a public hearing. We are looking for a motion of support to open a public hearing to receive citizen comment for the use of the JAG grant funds.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. I am looking through this to see if anybody has submitted. Okay, any discussion? Seeing or hearing none? Yep, that's what I'm voting for. Open the public hearing. Yep. Is the voice vote okay? Seeing or hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same. Public hearing is now open. Any comments from council? Okay.
I make a motion to close public hearing.
Just looking for a second. Okay, it's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Seeing or hearing none, the clerk will seeing or hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed the same. That mic ain't on, Freddie Dancy. All opposed the same. Public hearing is closed. That brings us down to 6.2, looking for a motion of support to conduct a public hearing. Sorry, I'm closing stuff out. To conduct a public hearing to receive citizen comment for the CDBG and home program performance.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing or hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed the same. Okay, public hearing is open. Vincent, Andrew, say that last name for me. Hold on, let me give you some mic, one more time.
Wouters.
Wouters.
Yep. And I'm looking specifically at, it's page 15, CR 25, homelessness and other special needs, 91.220. My questions specifically are, in here, I'm seeing the mention of utilizing $208,000 of ARPA funds for residents in action to do their thing throughout the winter time. But I'm just wondering about the 10 pallet houses that were mentioned during your State of the City address, as well as the purchase or the lease of the T.A. Wilson property, where those funds came from, et cetera. If they weren't used out of ARPA funds, why weren't they mentioned in the report, et cetera? That's just my question today. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and check to see the timing of the purchases. That'd be why the pallets may not be included in this 2022 and 2023 caper. And same with T.A. Wilson and the associated expenditures with that, they're ongoing right now. But I can get you that data individually outside of this for sure.
Just for clarifications, do we just know off the cuff where those,
ARPA.
those dollars were spent from?
ARPA.
Okay. William Hastings?
Are these comments timed?
No.
Take your time.
Why, thank you. So there are many, many issues and unanswered questions involving residents' inactions involvement with a federal grant we were told to help the homeless in Jackson. Number one, residents in action won the bid to manage these federal funds despite one, submitting the highest bid over established local social service nonprofits, and two, even more important, RIA is not an accredited nonprofit and did not have 501c3 status. Number two, Residents in Action has personal and professional ties to the mayor, Daniel Mahoney. Among other things, Mr. Mahoney co-founded and co-chaired another local nonprofit called Racing for Equity with one Keisha Hamilton, who is a prominent member of RIA, as well as holding an appointed position in the city of Jackson. Three, RIA's grand plan to help the homeless involved booking them into a dingy motel that is an open-air drug market and then dumping them back on the streets when the money ran out. Why the city of Jackson need to hire a third party to do this at all is questionable. RIA also committed to feeding the temporary residents of the motel, but a whistleblower who stood before all of you, stood right here where I'm standing, explained they were not being properly fed and sometimes only given uncooked hot dogs and lunch meats. Number four, despite having a large budget item in the grant, their bid, the RA bid for the federal grant money, a large budget item for food to feed the people involved in the program, the food service was low quality, and RA failed to get people signed up for SNAP benefits out of the gate. Isn't that funny? Isn't that weird? Of course, it is far harder to skim off a few dozen separate SNAP cards than it is to skim off a large single budget item for food. At the urging of one incredulous Jackson City Council member, Ms. Tasha Carter finally agreed that enrolling homeless people she was supposedly helping for SNAP benefits they legally qualified for might actually be a good idea. So getting food assistance via SNAP to help the people they were supposed to help was apparently far less enticing than buying food with funds that were flowing directly through their own hands via the federal grant. Big red flag. Number five, whistleblowers who spoke out against the shoddy conditions and substandard food provided by RIA were harassed and menaced. Number six, when it came to provide actual receipts and proper accounting for the spending of the federal grant money, RIA dragged their feet for months. And to this day, I do not believe their financial accounting has been subject to review by any true independent party or auditor. Given their direct connection to multiple members of Jackson city government, this is a grave oversight. And finally, as Jackson submits new grants for far larger amounts of federal grant money for homeless programs, Mayor Mahoney, instead of recusing himself, continues to personally advocate for Residents in Action, still unaccredited and still tied to him, to be eligible for the large sums of money the city is asking for new homeless spending. So many red flags, so many still unanswered questions.
Well, this is a public hearing, so I can answer a few of those questions for you, my friend. What was the organization you said I co-founded?
Racing for Equity.
Yeah, that's not a nonprofit, first and foremost. It's just
Okay.
a group of people
Okay.
who are racing for equity.
Okay.
Nor do I think it has anything to do with Residents in Action and the job that they did.
The
Just
co-founder,
just a clarification. I'm sorry, you had your time.
oh,
I'm just trying to
I
answer.
need to clarify because you're.
I'm just trying to
you're
answer some. I'm just trying to answer some of your questions. That's all, Mr. Hastings. Just trying to answer some questions for you. If you want to take the time to listen. One has nothing to do with the other. I have no personal affiliation with Residents in Action. I have personal relationships with several thousand people in this community. So if that excludes them from doing good work, that excludes a lot of people from doing good work in this community.
Mm-hmm.
I've got personal relationships with all the people from all the other organizations that submitted bids for the same contract that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, I had a personal phone call from the director of one of those organizations saying that Residents in Action will be far more qualified to do the work that we were asking to be done. I just want to answer some of those questions and address some of these concerns that you have. No rebuttal
I have
needed.
to wait. I have to wait.
No rebuttal needed. I'm just answering your questions. That was all.
Awesome, right here.
No, sir. Thank you. Council, any other comments, concerns, questions? Mr. John C. King.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. John King, 203 3rd Street here in the city. With some of your comments just a few moments ago, suggesting Residents in Action did a really good job, or that some person in some agency said they, let that person come here, they didn't do a good job, and that's some of the things maybe I'll want to talk with, that, maybe if this information gets to the feds, maybe they might do something. I doubt it. I seen in the report, it said no comments as of yet. This was when I first read it a couple of days ago. Even though there were postings like on the different properties that like the Jackson Housing Commission properties and other things. I don't know why that was. It was a little weird, but I think for the most part with this hearing, I'm not even sure if Aaron Dimmick put something out on the Facebook page. So as far as the feds wanting comments about, like this caper or whatever it's called, I thought that was a little odd, but, it's when something's not well published or communicated that we really want to get a lot of comments. It's almost like you would prefer no one comment, that maybe not everything you expect to hear will be what you want to hear. I know, like, there was the homeless prevention that this mentions, and like the money that went to RIA and some of the other efforts for the so-called homeless. I read an article, it was on MLive regarding Ypsilanti and sort of like the homelessness there and all the major problems it's causing by the way the city is handling it. There were a couple of comments where two different individuals regarding homelessness, where like one was the root of the problem is housing. Then the next one in the article was there is a solution and it's housing, and it's as simple as that. It's actually not a lot of the efforts that were taken, like in, let's say with RIA or the homeless prevention. The main issues is that a lot of people have drug problems. A lot of them are serious drug addicts. A lot of them have mental health issues. So it's not as simple as housing or just give someone like RIA money and, allow them to, spend it, put some of the so-called homeless up in hotels that fixes the problem. It actually doesn't. With some of the numbers, like with RIA, part of the promoting them as doing a great job was like the apples to oranges comparisons. There were a couple of the RFPs that were submitted that were based on 30 days, where with Residents in Action, they did it for at least 3 days. And so they're all along, they were making apples to oranges comparisons that, oh, we're doing all this great work, when it was only like 30 days worth, which was wrong the way they did it, and it was apples to oranges comparison. Part of all the stuff that was wrong with that program and with the city going through them. Now they've gotten 501c3 status, but that still doesn't make up for, what went on last summer and January and all that. For the pellet shelters, I had just got back a FOIA. I had done a FOIA because I wanted to find out where Laura Schlechte had mentioned that the pellet shelters that you got Mr. Mayor, that you had kind of forced the entire council to, spend the $150,000 on it at the time. And then, it's been a few months now, at least Laura Schlechte had mentioned that rather than them being installed and put up and everything, they were put into storage in the Department of Public Works building. So I tried doing a FOIA to find out exactly why they couldn't be put up by the T.A. Wilson School property. And so the first thing I got was, that, to fulfill the request, I would need to give the city a bunch of money for checking on some emails or texts and stuff like that. So, I had shrunk it down to the DPW director's communications, where I assume he would have to be at least copied on a lot of these things that, as far as why the pellet shelters can't be put up at T.A. Wilson School and why it's in, a building he's in charge of and stuff like that. Well, today I got that, there's no communications responsive to my FOIA, which is like, why wouldn't he be at least copied on all these communications about what's going down with the pellet shelters? So, but in essence, what I know from experience with FOIAs is that, the city is trying to not put forward exactly what went down with the pellet shelters. We know that you were saying, it's 34 degrees right now, people are going to die, and you even got on the city manager's, case that, why didn't you, look into, that was, I think, maybe early December, you're upset with the city manager that he didn't look and almost essentially get the quotes and stuff for the pellet shelters. So he continued on. Made sure the $150,000 was spent on pellet shelters, and then now that it turns out that they can't, I guess allegedly from what Laura Schlechte was saying, that if they can't be put up or something, seems something's wrong, and I use FOIAs to try to find out, and I get this, nope, you can't find out. So something's wrong there, and as far as the pellet shelters, and like I was saying at the time, you shouldn't have gotten it, and I thought you were just going to urinate $150,000 away, and that's what I suspect right now is that it's money that was urinated away, and so I would like the feds to kind of know that I have trust issues with the way things have been going with these federal funds. And one thing that stuck out in the in the agenda, it sort of mentions racial and ethnic composition of families assisted. It separates it into CDBG and then a home. So over for the CDBG, it's got like a white 5, black or African American 3. Everything else is 0. But then over at the home, it's got white 0, black or African American 14, Asian 0, American Indian or American Native 0, Native American or other Pacific Islanders 0. Nothing for blue people, nothing for green people. So all 14, it says, went to black or African American. So I've talked about, in the media, they push that, if there's overrepresentation of black people, that's systemic racism and maybe bad. So, but with these numbers, I mean, 100% going towards black or African American. I just wonder what's going on there. That seems like one heck of an overrepresentation. So, so those are a lot of my concerns about that I would like to maybe pass on to the feds. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. King. I do just want to comment that there's no way for me to force anybody to vote any certain way on anything. I just want to clarify that. Everybody has their own will up here, contrary to your opinion on that particular matter. I do think you raised some good questions, maybe not directly pertaining to what's on the table currently, but it is public hearing, so we just let you have the moment. So I'll ask some questions pertaining to those pallet shelters at the end of the meeting that hopefully will give you some additional answers as well. Counselor, is there any other questions or concerns?
I have a couple. Corey will probably have to answer these. On page 2, can you just explain that, the page 2? Can you come up, please?
Good evening. I'm sorry I would have come up sooner, but I wasn't sure if you wanted me up now or during the agenda item later, so that's why I sat for a minute there.
Oh, okay. If you could just explain page 2 of the report, like expected strategy 5, actual strategy 3, but you completed 300%. There's a highlighted 4,950 on that page. If you could just kind of give a rough idea what all that is.
Sure. You're so observant about the highlighting. Thank you for that. That's actually my error. I just forgot to change it before you got this version, so we caught that after the fact. That should just be unhighlighted.
Okay.
So I wish that HUD designed the chart that you see here on page 2. I wish that they put a bit of a break there, so you're actually looking at 2 sets of data. If you look over in column 1, 2, 3, 6, starting in 6, 6, 7, and 8 should really be one batch of data, and that's on the 5-year plan as a whole. Our CDBG and our home plan operates on a 5-year rotation. This is year 3. This is representative of year 3. So the 5-year running total is the first 3 columns there, and then the far 3 columns on the right, starting with expected program year, actual program year. That's just indicative of the 22-23 program year. So I wish that we had a little bit of a break there. I think it would be more visually representative of where we are. So if you look at, say, CDBG new construction, expected strategic plan, that's 5 new homes constructed in the entirety of the 5-year plan. But then when you see actual strategic plan, that's like a running number that adds all the years up so far that we've achieved in the plan, hence the 3 there. And then if you see the percent complete, the first one, that's percent complete of the entire 5-year plan. Then the one on the right is the percent complete just of the year we're in. So like that 300% is a really big number, but that's because of the 3 that have been achieved so far in the 5-year plan. All 3 just happen to be achieved in this year, hence the 300%.
Now it makes sense.
Yeah, that's visually confusing though, so maybe we can make some adjustments next year on that. I apologize.
Next question's on page 2023, it says that we demoed 11 homes in 2023. Did, Jonathan, did you have an overall, how many homes we've demoed? Might not apply right this moment, but you were gonna get that for us.
Oh, I don't have it on top of my head, but yeah, we did get those numbers. Michelle Pulse worked on them for a month.
Okay.
Yeah.
'Cause I think the public should know.
I think-
Page 4, you talk about funding will be used, second paragraph, funding will be used for the construction of affordable rental houses, the rehabilitation of existing rental housing, and additional homeless prevention activities. Can you tell me more about the first two? I think I know what we're doing on the homeless prevention, but what about the affordable rental housing and the rehabilitation existing? Is there anything definite on that, using that 1.1 million?
That's a great question, Councilwoman Schlechte, thank you. So this paragraph 2, just to kind of bring us around, is talking about the home ARP plan. Home ARP were additional funds that were allocated in 2021. The plan came before this council in the spring of 2023, I believe in March of this year. So these are separate funds outside of our entitlement funds that come from both CDBG and home. And so that plan that was approved by this body talked about new construction and rehabilitation of existing homes as a good target. Home ARP funds were generally designed for homelessness prevention. In other words, making sure that families either who are on the brink of homelessness or were kind of in that really horrible gap there, were protected and taken care of. So general CDBG and home expenditures, while certainly target that area, the home ARP funds are really, really specific in their goal to address that issue. And so the purpose of the plan that we put before you that was approved is really to kind of target that unique spot, both with construction and rehabilitation. We have not yet put out an RFP, a request for proposals, to administer those funds locally yet. That's the next thing on our plate once we get the 100 Homes program off the ground. So I don't have all the details for that, only because we just haven't been required to finish that process, but we'll be pretty close.
So you don't have the details for affordable rental housing and rehabilitation of existing rentals?
No, only because they have not been written yet.
Okay.
The plan has been approved both by this body and by HUD, and so then the next step for us will be then to create those guidelines and kind of refine exactly what those goals look like based on the needs that we identified.
Okay. And then the last question is on page 13. Number of households supported through the production of new units. What were the new units that were produced? Because it looks like you have 3, and you just said you had 3. It's in the table, second table.
Thanks, I appreciate that. The 3 units that are being referenced there are the 3 homes constructed through Habitat for Humanity in what we call DeLand Point on Franklin Street on the other side of the YMCA.
Okay.
Thank you for that. Again, some of the narratives and data boxes that HUD puts forth for this plan, I think are a little bit confusing, and so a good opportunity to include some more information there, so I appreciate the opportunity.
And do we have a status on what's happening with Jackson Housing Commission? Did they replace their executive director? And do we know anything? Because that was Jackson Housing Commission is mentioned in here.
I do not have an update at this time.
Okay. Not yet. Okay. Thank you. That's all I have.
You're welcome. I wonder, may I make an additional comment while I'm up here? Am I in order to do so? Just a clarification based on some of what I've heard tonight. Great comments were brought forth. Some comments about homelessness in particular and ARPA funding. This report that is before you is designed only to discuss funding from CDBG and home funds. So any mention of ARPA funding in here is not federally required. It's ancillary data only. There's some categories that are in here that address homelessness, and in the past, the data that the city has been able to provide frankly hasn't been as rich as it was this year. The work that was done in this 22-23 year related to homelessness was often new and provided some additional depth of data that we decided was worth sharing with HUD. So it's not required to be in here. This really isn't an ARPA reporting plan per se. It's a separate document at a separate time. But that's why it's in here, but maybe in different parts or in different ways. So just wanted to provide some clarification. Anything further for me?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Council, any additional questions? Seeing or hearing none, if you would please
I
make a motion.
to close the hearing.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing or hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same. And the public hearing is closed. That brings us down to citizens' comment. I will start us off by reading the rules for speaking before city council. Number one, each speaker will state their name and address prior to prior to addressing council. Number two, each speaker is limited to up to 3 minutes during the citizens' comment portion of the meeting. Council members will not debate or answer questions at this time. Number three, each speaker should be polite and courteous to the council and members of the public in attendance. While any speaker is free to express his or her opinion on any subject, no speaker may direct personal attacks at any member of the staff or council unrelated to the manner in which they perform their duties, use obscene language while addressing the city council, or engage in disruptive or disorderly behavior during a council meeting. Number four, should any speaker cause a breach of the peace through their conduct, the mayor may declare the speaker out of order. Number five, if a speaker is declared out of order by the mayor and refuses to cease and desist from disruptive or disorderly conduct, the mayor may order the person removed from the meeting. Number six, each speaker may speak once under public comment and may not yield their time to others. Leabra White.
My name is Leabra White, and I live at 1934 Southwest Avenue. And I am here to speak about the City of Jackson's trespass ordinance. I've lived at my address for 21 years, and I have a neighbor who has been trespassing on my property and damaging it for the last 3 years. She had a survey completed, so she knows the property lines. She spray painted my property in July, damaging it, vandalizing it. She had to trespass on my property to do it. She placed a tripwire across my driveway, impeding my pathway, so I could not even enter my driveway. She placed a skewer on one side by the fence line and put a string with a skewer on the other side, which she had to trespass on my property to do it. The same day, she took her sprinkler, placed it on her property, but it went all over my driveway from 4 o'clock in the afternoon to 8 o'clock the next morning, keeping me from using my property. Her water is a trespass on my property. I have 4 police reports indicating all of this. I filed a PPO. The judge denied it, saying that there was no criminal intent, but it was a matter of trespass. He instructed her to stay off of my property. 4 days later, she's continuing to trespass on my property, and I have her on audio saying, what are they going to do? She can't file a PPO. She has called me the N-word, among other things, when I've approached her about it. She has a criminal record for assaulting a public officer, so she's not somebody that I want to continue to approach. And I feel like the city needs to enforce their trespass ordinance. Now, the city is charging her for malicious destruction of my property, and I'm happy about it. However, I don't feel like I'm being properly informed. I emailed yesterday to see if I should attend the arraignment, which is scheduled for October 2nd, and they told me that that was waived and there's a pretrial for Thursday. I had no idea. This is about me. I'm supposed to be the victim. The city prosecutor's office and the community development office has both told me that I need to contact the police if she's trespassing on my property. But what I find interesting is right above your MDOP destruction ordinance is a trespass ordinance. So you're going to enforce one, but you're not going to enforce the other. She had to trespass on my property to damage it, and she continues to do so. Even this Sunday, and she has no consequences, so she's comfortable doing it. She's throwing birdseed all along my property to attract the animals and their feces, which is her intent. No consequence. However, she made a complaint against me with the city because I did not have a fence permit, which I thought my contractor got. So I get a code officer at my house for a fence permit for $75. I know. But I paid $500 for variance. I'm not trying to skirt $75, but she's caused thousands of dollars worth of damage, and the city can come out for $75.
Sorry, thank you. Christy Davis.
Christy Davis, 612 4th Street. Almost gave you my zip code. Almost said Jackson, like you don't know that. All right, as a resident of Ward 5, I do want to take a minute to congratulate Karen, woohoo, and wish her the best of luck. I would also like to thank you for your example of leadership for Ward 5. I have been a homeowner on 4th Street in Ward 5 since November of 2006. I also work in the city, I work for the hospital, and I currently actually have a job working at home, so I'm in Ward 5 pretty much 24/7. I have been involved in city cleanups and have recently enjoyed meeting more of my neighbors and getting to know all the great things happening, especially with Right Way Boxing, which is just down the street from me. I love hearing the guy yell at the kids in a positive way. Every day as they're hustling up and down the street. They do a great job. Together We Can Make a Difference is also in my ward. They do great things. Isaiah's Hub, Rise Above, Lilly Mission, MLK Center, and Reaching Higher are also doing some great things in the other wards in Jackson, and it's just been really amazing to see the positive changes. I have several ideas that I would love to have an opportunity to put into play in the city, not just in my own ward. And I believe we need to make Jackson more of a family again. And after sitting on the sidelines long enough, because yes, it is 2023 and I've lived in the city quite a while, I would be honored to be able to apply in an interview for the city council position that is left vacant due to Karen's sad resignation. I love Jackson, and I would love to be able to see it flourish again. Thank you very much.
Jerry Montgomery.
Well, I'm Jerry Montgomery. I live at 341 Hill Street, Jackson, Michigan. And I'm 81 years old, and I've applied for an application, and I turned it into the mayor's secretary for the Housing Commission. And I've been a housing commissioner 1.5 terms under Derek Doby. He got rid of me, and evidently you must be carrying it on because you went ahead of me with 2 other appointments approval. But I'm after that water. Why should it take us 35 years, 34 now, if you live in there? When you can size it out to somebody outside and they can come in and do it in 10 years, like Lansing did. They did Lansing and East Lansing in 10 years. All the pipes. You got $8.4 million grant, and according to the grant money, it should pay for the water pipes being replaced to the citizens of Jackson at no cost to them. And when are we gonna do something about that torn up house there on warehouse on North Street? That's a disaster. Thank you. Have a good day.
Jan Torga.
Good evening. I'm Jan Tornga. I live at 1500 block of East Ganson. I've been a resident of the city a good share of my life. I would like to highly recommend that Mayor Mahoney appoint Christy Mae Davis for City Council Ward 4. I think she would be a great addition. And I would like the people of Jackson to also consider voting for Steve Answini in the 6th Ward. He's an outstanding businessman. They're both Christy and Steve are honest, intelligent, have high integrity, they're hardworking, they're personable, and they care about the city. So please vote for them either way by voting in the city council or with the election November 7th. So everyone, please get out and vote. It is your right. People died for the right to vote. Don't walk away from that. Vote in person if possible. Thank you.
William Hastings.
So it's time to talk a little more about homeless policy in Jackson. So for a little perspective, should all take a look at what's going on just a short drive down I-94 in Ypsilanti. Here's a few news headlines. December 7th, 2022, headline, Ypsilanti church to open first winter overnight shelter in modern city history. February 2nd, 2023, headline, long-awaited Ypsilanti homeless shelter set to open Monday. So Ypsilanti just opened a new homeless shelter with a staff of 10 people just 8 months ago, and by golly, that's exactly what you're trying to do right now at T.A. Wilson. So wouldn't it make sense, since they're doing the same thing just a little bit ahead of you, to take a look and see how that's working out? MLive headline, September 9th, 2023. Ypsilanti officials beg patience as tensions rise over downtown safety. Oh, that doesn't sound very good. Ypsilanti police and other officials are asking for grace and patience from the community as they work to address a housing crisis some say has led to an unsafe downtown area. Residents and business owners spoke at a nearly 2-hour public comment session. That's some angry people when you have 2 hours of public comment. During an Ypsilanti City Council meeting on Tuesday, September 5th, saying aggressive panhandling, ongoing partying, and public defecation has made living and working downtown difficult. Jen Eastridge, owner of 2 businesses on Michigan Avenue in Ypsilanti, said during the meeting she has picked up alleys littered with needles, condoms, and liquor bottles, and that panhandling and public urination has driven away business. So that's reality. Reality is real. You, as a body, as a group, by your actions, you are summoning up, you are invoking crime, chaos, and filth into a working class, working poor neighborhood in Ward 5 that's just a 5 to 10 minute stroll from downtown. The city's actions will trash this neighborhood without the consent of the residents and also degrade the revitalized downtown area and the city as a whole. Anyone who sits on this council and supports turning T.A. Wilson into what will ultimately just be a flop house for drug addicts, vagrants, and the mentally ill who pose a criminal threat to the residents of the city is sowing the wind and will reap a whirlwind of furious pushback when the ugly truth on the ground, the everyday reality on the ground for people in the 5th Ward becomes manifest and becomes real. So I would just say you better be very careful of what you wish for. And for people to talk about equity, you're going to be wreaking destruction on the 5th Ward and especially on the Morale Greenwood neighborhood. Those people don't know what's about to hit them. So much for equity.
John C. King.
Thanks again, Mr. Mayor. John King, 203 3rd Street here in the city. Our nation is facing perhaps its greatest threat now. In the last few days, President Joe Biden has named Vice President Kamala Harris the new gun violence czar. After Harris was named the border czar near the beginning of the Biden administration, the illegal alien crossings hit record levels. Things have gotten so bad the mainstream media is even reporting the truth about it now, calling what is a border crisis being used despite the White House claiming they fixed the problem. It seems like many of the headline stories being reported in the last month or so, such as the Pennsylvania prison escapee, the child killed in a first day of school bus accident in Ohio, or a fentanyl death of a child in a New York daycare center, can all be attributed to illegal aliens and Vice President Harris' handling of the border as border czar. Let's hope and pray she doesn't do for gun violence what she did for the border crisis. Locally, our woke 6th Ward council members campaigning on the lie that the large increases in water rates is due to the lead service lines needing to be replaced, as if to suggest he had no control over the matter and claiming the increases really aren't that big anyhow. The city of Jackson is receiving funds for the lead service line replacements. The fact is the water rate increases are largely due to the consumers' energy being able to get out of the contract at the old Karen Morgan plant and pipe in their own water to their plant. Baker Tilly's reports last few years have mentioned this several times. That was something our woke 6th Ward Council member had control over and result in water bills in the city going up by the hundreds of dollars per year. Our woke 6th Ward member even had the nerve to state his opponent, Steve Ann Sweeney, was being dishonest on the topic. Finally, as a send-off to my city council member, Karen Bonnell, I have to say the most disappointing thing about her on the council was her not wanting to hear from constituents. I read someone mention in the last few months that her email didn't receive a return from Karen. I think that there may have been a perception Karen was just mailing it in, so to speak. It was Karen who led the effort to end the reading of citizen comments and forced people to have to come into City Hall and risk their lives during the pandemic in order to be heard. The City Council will appoint someone to fill Karen's seat until it is filled by election sometime in November of 2024, which will be followed up by an election in November of 2025. I pushed for changes that had council vacancies being filled immediately as soon as possible, but to no avail. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. King. Jeannie Brown.
Hi, I live in Summit Township, 2940 West Washington. I was talking to some residents who had their street done, repaired with new curbs and sewers. These people said with the extra money added to their taxes and rising water rates, they don't know if they can still stay there. Besides the awful way the roads were put in without enough sewer drains, they flood the streets and basements of their houses, and it's up to the taxpayers to pay for that damage also. They said they can hardly afford to live here. How many taxes from these people and others that get foreclosed or move away are you going to get? How much money do you get from vacant houses? I just want to say, vote for Peter Van Muth in the 2nd District, 2nd Chair, Diane Toman for 4th, Steve Ansuni for 6th, and John Wilson for Mayor. Thank you.
Nancy Smith.
Hello, I'm Nancy Smith, and I'm a Constituent Services Aide with State Senator Sue Schenck, here to give an update. Over the summer, I think I mentioned before that our office was out knocking doors, doing constituent engagement activities. We knocked thousands of doors just in the city of Jackson. We asked constituents what they want Lansing to know and what issues were most important to them. So now it's fall, happy fall. And the state legislature is kind of back into its regular busy rhythm of being in session. Senator Schenck is going to be working hard to advance bills in the Clean Energy Future Plan. That's a bill package that's going to support Michigan's efforts to become a leader in the clean energy economy. The plan will invest in our people, protect air and water, create good-paying clean energy jobs, and promote renewable and reliable energy sources for our citizens. So I'm happy to be here tonight just to learn what's new in Jackson and what council is working on. And please feel free to reach out to me or to our office anytime. Thanks.
Jackie Austin.
Hello, everybody. I'm Jackie Austin. I'm here on behalf of the Jackson Young Professionals. I just wanted to say on your consent calendar tonight is the new ETA, Emerging Technology and Art Festival, that we're planning for October 14th. This is a festival that brings together art and technology. We're super excited about bringing the manufacturing history of Jackson together with new age concepts in art. This festival will expand artistic boundaries, create elevated experiences, and inspire future innovators. So we're hoping all of you come out and enjoy the festival. It'll be right here on Cortlandt Street behind City Hall, 3 o'clock to 11 o'clock on October 14th. So, thank you.
Derek Dobies.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just here to thank you all for your continued service to the city, and also show up to thank Karen in particular. I texted her the other night, asked her when her last meeting was. She texted me like Tuesday. So wanted to come out here. It was a privilege to serve with you. I appreciate that, albeit we probably came from different sides of the aisle, we could always focus on what is best for the city. I appreciate your practical approach to politics, and thank you for the time that you spent giving back to the residents and businesses and the people that call Jackson home. So it is not an easy job, as everyone up here can surely attest to, but I think you did it with your own style and grace, and appreciate having the opportunity to serve with you, to get to know you better, and wish you the best in your future endeavors. Thank you, Karen.
Okay. That concludes our citizens' comment portion of the meeting. Moves us down to item number 8, petitions and communication from city staff and other governmental entities to be accepted and placed on file. Looking for a motion and support to accept and place on file 8.1, a letter from Michigan Liquor Commission, Michigan Liquor Control Commission regarding the ownership transfer application submitted to the state from Tilted Arcade LLC for a Class C license.
So moved.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Seeing or hearing none, clerk will tally and display the vote. Item passes unanimously, brings us down to number 9, consent calendar. Looking for a motion and support on the consent calendar.
Make a motion to approve the consent calendar with one correction, that the ETA festival is on October 14th, not on the 13th. Set up and tear down are on the 13th and 15th, but the festival is on the 14th.
Mr. Mayor, I'd also like to remove item 9.1 for separate consideration.
Okay, was that a second with that removal?
Yes.
Okay. So all but item 9.1 and the correction on item 9.4. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing or hearing none, the clerk will tally and display the vote. Passes unanimously and brings us back to 9.1. Looking for a motion and support to approve the minutes from the regular meeting of the City Council on September 12th, 2023.
So moved.
Moved and supported. Any discussion?
I assume Mr. Forgrave's going to abstain since he wasn't here?
Yeah, that's why I pulled it.
Okay. Clerk will tally and display the vote. Item passes 6 with 1 abstention, and that brings us down to item number 10. Other business on 10.1, looking for a motion and support to approve the second and final reading and adoption of ordinance number 515, establishing the compensation rates for administrative and supervisory employees of the City of Jackson. So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion on the item?
I just have one question. How much do we pay the city assessor in the contract? Do you remember? Because it's not on that rate thing, that study.
Yeah, it's, I don't know off the top of my head, and he wouldn't be paid on that. It's a separate contract. I'd
No,
go
I
back
know.
to
I
that.
just wondered
Yeah, I'd have to go
how it
back-
compares.
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
Seems like I remember it to be like
Thanks.
Well, why do it when she can ask me?
That's exactly it. Could you find out and just email us? Thank you.
I do have just one question in regards to the presentation and the way study. If we can, and this isn't something that you have to do right now, just a small request. If you can just come up with a plan on how we can.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm sure you probably already know what we're gonna say. So
Yep.
like just to, and my question is if the city manager would just present a plan on how to make sure that our employees that are shown to be paid below the minimum pay scale, to bring them up into that range. I'm not so concerned about the employees who are being paid over that range, because I think it's great when we can play our employees over the scale range. But it's a concern for me for anybody that's being paid under that amount. That would be my only request.
Understood.
Seeing or hearing no other comments or concerns, clerk will tally and display the vote. Item passes unanimously. Brings us down to item 10.2, looking for a motion to support for the second reading and final adoption of ordinance number 2023-06, amending the hours of operation for marijuana provisioning centers and retail establishments in the city of Jackson.
So moved.
Support.
So moved and supported. Any discussion on the item? Seeing or hearing none, the clerk will tally and display the vote. To no surprise, it passes 6-1. Brings us down to item 10.3, looking for a motion of support for the second reading and final adoption of ordinance number 2023-07, amending chapter 28, article, is that 9? Section 28-253, removing all language from the section as it pertains to revocable licenses for signs and/or awnings, and amending permit and conditional use requirements for specific types of signs as recommended by the City of Jackson's Planning Commission.
So moved. Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Seeing or hearing none, the clerk will tally and display the vote. Item passes unanimously. Brings us down to item number 10.4, looking for a motion to support to approve the second reading and final adoption of ordinance number 2023-08, amending Chapter 28, Article 9, Section 28-257, removing all language from the section as it pertains to revocable licenses for signs and/or awnings in the right-of-way as recommended by the City of Jackson Planning Commission.
So moved.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Seeing or hearing none, the clerk will tally and display the vote. Item passes unanimously, brings us down to 10.5. Looking for a motion and support to approve the second reading and final adoption of ordinance number 2023-09, repealing Chapter 28, Article 5, Section 28-166 to conform with changes made in ordinance number 2023-07 and 2023-08.
So moved.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Seeing or hearing none, the clerk will tally and display the vote. Passes unanimously. And that brings us down to 10.6, extreme ownership.
At the end of the last meeting and a few meetings before, I asked for updates, and so I just thought I'd formally put it on the agenda so we can get an update on the extreme ownership program, what's the current cost, and how's it going, and who's attended, and projections, and is it making a difference?
I can answer some of those questions. Since you brought it up, we've, staff has really taken on to putting something really smooth for you to see, knowing what how you like to receive information, so that's been a part of it. So I don't have like the costs in front of me tonight, but I know that the team is working on a presentation, so I can hit some of the highlights. It's been a minute, so I'll have to remember.
I'm sorry, can I just ask a question
Yes.
just for time's sake?
Yeah.
So is that a presentation that will come by the next meeting?
We can totally do that if that's what, the Councilmember Selecty asked for her own update, so that's what we're catering it to, but if it wants to come to the full council, we will do the full council too, and we can skip this for tonight, but I can do something real brief tonight. Doesn't matter to me how you guys want to handle it. I could talk about it all night long, so I'm glad he stopped me.
Yeah.
No, I could.
Only if you bring us pizza or something.
So I would prefer to see everything, because I'm interested to see it as well, Laura, but I mean, it was your
No, that's fine.
item to add.
If they've got a presentation, if we can have that on the agenda for next
Yeah.
month, or next meeting,
Next meeting.
which is next month,
Yeah.
Mhm.
I would be way cool. I just wanted to make sure that, that it got addressed.
Okay.
No, we're falling over ourselves to get this done. Staff is on board, I can say that. I'll just say it tonight. On board, bought in.
So I kind of see everybody nodding for a full report at the next meeting on the agenda, if that's
Got it.
possible.
All right.
Anything else on item 10.6 for now? Okay, so we'll see that next month. That brings us to item 10.7, Optimist Park.
Yeah, I wanted to formally put this on the agenda because I've got some upset constituents, and I'm concerned, and we're in construction, and it looks like it's coming, that revised park is coming to an end, and I know I did talk to you about this, but I also know that if we don't deal with some of this stuff while construction's going on, it costs us more. Big concern is it's been moved so that there's no parking right now, except for on the end of Lincoln. And the neighbors are the ones who are gonna suffer with, there's no way to turn around, zero. I've been there, the curb's been poured. You have to pull into the neighbor's yard, driveways to turn around, and I do not think that that's fair for them. Especially if it's I think they're all owner occupied, but if one were a non-owner occupied and the driveway became beat up because of wear and tear, they'd be required to fix it. So, there's no sidewalk without going through the basketball courts, like through the middle of the basketball courts. And the entrances are off-center. It's not even like straight. And I get why you do that, but there needs to be a sidewalk that goes around the basketball because there's a lot of older people that live over there, and they are not gonna wanna walk through the basketball courts while these young kids are thumping around. Those are just a few things. I just would like to see those addressed so that they know that that it is a concern for us as much as it is for them.
Yes, when you called me about that, I know I answered some of your questions. We've amended the plans, and the Parks Director and I, Kelly Hoover, would like to have another meeting out there to go over the changes and to allay some of the fears.
Okay, so what do you mean with the constituents?
Yeah, with the constituents,
Okay.
exactly.
Well, I will set that up.
We will set that up.
Okay.
We've got it.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions or concerns on Optimist Park from anyone else on council? Okay, seeing or hearing none, brings us down to item 10.8, special assessments.
I don't want to see this dropped, and it was added to the last agenda. It's been added to this one, and I think it needs to be on the agenda until we resolve what we're doing with the special assessments. And I don't know, maybe we do it, I don't know how we resolve it. I think 25% of SEV is high for special assessments. And, you know, I've got I think there were four things that, four bullet points that I felt needed to be addressed, but I don't know that you could do them individually or if they have to be done as a whole. But if we don't leave it on the agenda, it's gonna get forgotten until next spring when we have this all happen again.
So I definitely wouldn't disagree. I just think that it would probably be best for for us to request maybe the city assessor to present something. So that way we actually have something that we can consider, because just having it on the agenda with like nothing formal being presented just leaves it for conversation. And I think just conversation, still nothing's going to be decided. Either that or we're going to make an uninformed decision if something is decided without backup information on whatever is being proposed.
Right.
But I agree, and I think that we should probably take the items like one section at a time, because we definitely voted last time that we don't want to make the wholesale change to the ordinance itself that was proposed. So I do think that was one decision that was made, that we don't want to see that change that would actually cause an increase in assessments for most citizens in the community. But maybe that's a question we can direct back to the city assessor to ask them. Starting with the SEV caps, I think would probably be a good place.
Yeah, the four items I have is the percentage of the SEV, or however we want to do that, but right now it's percentage of SEV. Item number one. Item number two is a cap on the assessment. Item number three is unit versus frontage. And item number four are the categories of streets. I don't know if I missed something, but.
So I wasn't at the last meeting. I think a big kind of 30,000-foot view part of Jason's request was that it would split assessments and homeowner costs, or city costs and assessments 50-50. Is that accurate? Am I remembering that right? I wasn't at the last meeting, so no.
Yeah, that's where the category of the streets came in right now. With the category of the streets, it's a percentage based on the category of the street. And Jason's suggestion was to just take the categories away and split it 50-50, because the value of the house is different for the property.
That was one of the things
Right.
talked about,
Yeah.
So that I would add that to the list. It may be as simple as splitting at 60-40, and then it'll be lower for everybody if that's our concern, and then we can do that.
I would think that falls under the category of
Yeah.
streets
Okay.
topic. So can we make a request that Jason bring us maybe some recent rules that show us the difference in percentage of SEV? You wanted to tackle that one first?
I mean, this is something that you brought back up, so I
Right.
think it's.
Well,
you know,
if I
that's-
brought up I can guarantee you, and this isn't a slam against anybody, if I brought up a proposal, it would get shut down, simply because it's such a complicated topic that I feel quite confident without somebody like Jason steering the ship.
Oh, I understand that
So,
part. I'm just saying that,
yeah.
like, you asked for the agenda item to be
Yeah,
on there,
right.
right?
Well, I'm
So
looking for some guidance.
For me personally, I'm not at all interested in entertaining front footage versus per unit. I think I've seen enough graphs to see what that's going to do to the average citizen in our community's assessment in general. And again, I've asked several times, if you can show me something different, then I would be all ears. But every example that was shown shows an increase. The other items, as far as how it's split based on the categories of street, the cap on the assessments, and again, for me personally, I'm not interested in, and this is just me, I'm not speaking for council, I'm speaking for me personally. The cap when it comes to a cap for commercial, I think is something that's I'm probably going to be opposed to as well. that's just me personally, but I think those would probably be the major three items that would be discussed, because I think that it was a pretty largely based on the fact that the per unit versus front footage is the reason why the entire change was kind of shot down. I don't think anybody else was opposed to like doing things to lower assessments. But that one item is what was majorly causing an increase to the average person's assessments.
So can I make a recommendation that we ask Jason to bring back a couple of rolls that have already been done, so he knows the front footage of them already, with a 12.5% of SEV. I'm not going to worry about cap right now, because we can always talk about cap once we see the numbers. Based on frontage and comparing category of streets versus splitting it 50-50.
Mr. Mayor? You know, I don't think we necessarily need to take a vote on that at this point, up or down. I mean, we're called lawmakers for a reason. Like, any one of us can call Jason tonight and draft a law ourselves and present it to all of us and vote up or down on it. And I think that might be the way forward with this. I think asking Jason to present something when you have 7 people asking for 7 different things maybe isn't the best course of action. We can draft something. We are allowed to do that. It's been done before.
Yeah, he just he just has the number.
Is there any other comments?
He just has the numbers is the thing.
Well, yeah, he's got the numbers, and I almost feel like it's not, when you say drafting a law, drafting the legislation or the law or whatever, I mean, we want to look at comparisons and alternatives, and I think that's the middle ground is what we're looking for. And I feel like that was the discussion we had at the end of the last meeting.
Right.
So how do we do that? Do we do it here? Do we do it in a separate meeting? I think that's really the question for me.
Well, that's why I said if we look at it at 12.5%, it's just it's half
Some
of what it is
parameters.
now. Cap is something that we can deal with separately after you see all the numbers. It's just a cap, that's a conversation. You don't like unit? I'm okay. Either way, I have no strong feeling one way or the other on that, so keep it at frontage, so he doesn't have to do anything there. And then the only thing he's comparing is whether we take away categories of streets versus a 50-50 split. And again, if the 50-50 split looks bad, then you can change it to 60-40, whatever, but at least you can get an idea. And I think that gives us a good ground to work on, and it gives him some direction, just to get us a couple of projects that they've already done, so he doesn't have to do a lot of extra work. I don't know if you need a motion, or if that's just, do you need a motion?
If
Just go do that.
yeah,
All right. Well, I just want to keep it on the agenda. So you want me to call Jason after that, and ask him to bring it for the next meeting? Okay.
that way we have all comparable data and information to take a look at on how it's going to actually impact. And I think well, we'll let him decide. I don't know how he would present the information other than like a blank graph like he did this time, because I think when you start doing actual comparisons of previous projects, because we asked him for that I know I asked him for that information before, like give me some real life examples of what the impact on this is. And he had some concerns with like doing it on an actual project from the past. So, but that, again, that's for him to determine and decide. But again, I'm definitely interested in discussing it, especially if it's going to be something that would help us bring those assessments down.
Okay, done. Thank you.
Any other discussion on the special assessments? Okay, that'll bring us down to 10.9, rooming house fees.
I'd like to see staff formally look at the rooming house fees. We're trying to deal with low income, make sure people have housing, and the fee that's charged to rooming house is the same as if they're inspecting an apartment. So if I have 10 rooms, and for clarification, I do not own a rooming house. If I have, good to clarify, right?
Yes.
Yes. If I have a 10-room rooming house, I'm going to be charged as if it's a 10 apartment.
Yeah.
Angelita would know.
Yeah.
And it's a room. It's probably got 2 plugs and a window and a door, maybe a closet, because some of the rooming houses do not have closets. And
So,
just,
so can I ask a question just for clarification?
sure.
So I understand, but I'm curious if your proposal is for it to just be a different rate or for it to be inspected as one entire unit, because even in a rooming house, there's, with the exception of a where, right? I think that's a little different, but
If it helps you, I have
for
no.
lack of better terms, the animal house, they still charge per room like it's an apartment, like it's an individual, like you don't.
But that doesn't, but we're not in the profit business. The city is not clearly in the profit business.
No, not about the profit. I mean, like for the resident that lives there, the inspection is for the safety, health, and well-being of the resident, right? So with the resident being individually paying, so again, my question to you is: is your proposal or your recommendation for it to be inspected at a different fee cost or in a different method?
I'm not, that would be for staff to come back and make a recommendation. I've thought in my head about a lot of different things. You take a place like the Aware Shelter, it used to be a residence. I could say, okay, I could have a 5-bedroom house, right? 1 kitchen, maybe 2 bathrooms, but let's assume it has 1 bathroom. I don't know if there's a number of bathrooms per bedrooms you have to have. I don't know the answer to that. But let's assume you can have 1 bathroom. I would pay $299 for that inspection. But if I rented it as rooms, now that rate is like $1,700 or $2,000. Well, you know what? I've got the rate right here. What did I say? 5 bedrooms. This is not the easiest thing. I might have brought the wrong one. Hold on. Oh, here it is. 5 to 50. I'm going to pay $230 times 5. So it's $1,000 something plus $100, as opposed to $299. To me, it's just a huge inequity. The landlord of a rooming house has to collect from each one of those people as opposed to one person. They'd have to evict each one separately. So I don't know that, we shouldn't be judging the fee based on whether or not the landlord's making a profit or not. We should be basing it on reality. And reality is, it's a bedroom. And my bedroom has got nothing special in it compared to anybody else's bedroom. You know, I just think it's an absorbent amount, and I don't know what the answer is. I just think that's what staff gets paid to do. They know how long it takes them to do that. I don't have a rooming house, so I can't answer that. The largest place I have is 4 bedrooms.
So, but I think, and I understand, but I think we need to give some direction on what it is we're asking staff to do, because just kind of leaving it open or asking them to make a recommendation could just lead them to come back and say, well, the recommendation is to leave it the same and here's why. But if there's a specific direction or a specific thing that you're trying to accomplish, then I think that would be the easiest route to say, hey, I think this should be assessed, or the fee structure for rooming houses should be different in this way.
Right. I could make some, if there's 2 bathrooms, maybe they charge as if it's a 2 unit apartment. I have no, but then you go to, gosh, there's a 26-unit rooming house on Lansing, and I think they have 3 bathrooms, right? So I really think that it's the expertise of that department, and they've been doing inspections since 2012. I think they know what they're doing. I just think that in this particular instance, the rate didn't get thought through as clearly. And I think you're seeing more and more rooming houses, and you will see more and more rooming houses, just because of the way the economy is. I mean, I'm seeing families combining and renting one house because of the cost of rentals. So I don't want to even pretend that I have the answer, because then of course someone will say I'm unethical. So, but I think, I mean, Angelita, when you get that bill, I'm sure she looks at that and says,
Yeah.
I'm sure they have some idea. They've already adjusted the price on, I know the Darby Lodge got adjusted.
So maybe we can just start with asking if Shane would come next meeting, to discuss rooming house fees, thoughts behind how the current fee structure is, and then once we hear that and the science behind the current structure, we can ask some questions, and then maybe we would have a better idea on how to make some recommendations on what changes could potentially be made to that structure.
We can have some options for you guys to consider too. Like, here, we can give you a sit rep, like this is what's going on. And if you want to make a change, here's some options you could consider. And obviously you as council gets to say like, kind of like that, kind of like a little bit of that, a little bit of this, not so much that, and do it on your own, but we'll have some setup for you, just the same way you have set up on the special assessment type stuff.
Thank you. Does that suffice?
Yep. That makes.
Any other concerns, questions, comments on the rooming house fees? Okay, seeing or hearing none, that brings us down to item number 11.1 under new business. Looking for a motion in support to approve the sale of 4 city-owned properties located at 652 Cooper Street and 316 East Trail Street, combined to one lot, and 654 and 656 Cooper Street combined to one lot to the Greater Jackson Habitat for Humanity for the purpose of building 2 new single-family homes. Authorize city attorney to create the property transfer agreement and any other authorized documents to be completed to complete the sale of the property, and authorize the city manager to sign property transfer and other related documents.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion?
What's the cost for the sale? I didn't see that in, just out of curiosity.
Corey, do you remember offhand?
I'm texting machine right now. I do not, I apologize.
$300.
Yeah, they're just the
Okay.
standard prices.
Okay,
They're not a developer, so we didn't squeeze.
yeah,
They're a
okay.
partner. This is
Just,
part of-
I'm just curious.
Part of our
Okay.
building back to neighborhoods.
Yeah, it
Are these
sounds
going to be
great.
constructed similar to the other Habitat homes?
I believe I believe they're gonna have that DeLand look, but I don't know that offhand.
Okay.
I have to clarify that.
Nice.
Corey knows. Go, just answer, buddy.
These are for a grant that both the city and Habitat
Oh, yes.
received a couple dish grant from DishDOT
Okay,
to produce accessible and visitable homes.
got you.
Ah,
For they'll-
nice.
so that's what these want.
And are they gonna look like the neighborhood is what we're thinking.
That I can't.
Yeah, I don't think,
Their plans yet.
yeah.
I just know that's where the funding's coming from.
There was a request for you to talk into the mic.
It's okay, Corey.
So, all good. I think that summed it up.
Homes.
4 new homes. That's good news. Sorry. I just was repeating
If
what
we have a
Councilman
say in it,
Dancy
I'd
said.
vote for no on the,
On the DeLand look.
yeah, that was a previous administration's idea, wasn't it?
We're in the new administration now, it's all.
Right.
Talk to those homeowners
Those
about
other
their
houses
consumer's
that are
bill.
in that neighborhood are so cute. and they have maintained their style and keeps the neighborhood really nice looking. Anyhow.
Okay. Clerk will tally and display the vote. Passes unanimous, brings us down to 11.2. Looking for a motion and support for the approval of second one-year contract extension with Executive Property Management of Michigan for downtown sidewalks and parking lot snow removal and Police Department sidewalk and parking lot snow removal at the cost of $90,352 for the fiscal year of 2023-2024.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I have a question, Mr.
Yes,
City
sir.
Manager. So is this, 1 year, so they have multiple 1 year contracts? This is the last on a contract, or there's no, bids, or how does this work?
Exact opposite. This is the first year of a 1 year by 1 year extension.
So how many extensions have they had so far?
This is the first one.
So, and next year it'll be back on the agenda again for,
I mean, at that point, we'll look at it like we do a lot of things, and we'll see if it makes sense to bid again. I am a little protective of the snow removal process, and I view it differently than the lot mowing that we do. The downtown snow removal takes a significant amount of coordination, and it takes, to be fair to the contractor and to give them some grace, it takes like 2 years for them to figure out when they need to be downtown and how to coordinate getting the snow from the sidewalk. Then it gets pushed into the street that the DPW has to take care of, and the timing and coordination of all that takes some time for them to figure it all out. So I know that you'd like to see our bids be broken up and to see shorter bids so more people can be competitive. On this one, I would just push back for those reasons. I don't think it makes a lot of sense. I am happy to report that we'll be bringing a whole bunch of different bids and breaking up our like lot and mowing maintenance contracts to get some new contractors in here hopefully. But I think on this one, it makes the most sense to keep going with who we got because of the level of detail involved. And when there are issues, when they come in and they clear a sidewalk after we've cleared the streets, all it does is create a snow mound, and it takes some time to build that relationship up.
Any other discussion? Seeing or hearing none, the clerk will tally and display the vote. Item passes unanimously, brings us down to 11.3. Looking for a motion and support for the memorandum of understanding for JAG grant.
Second.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Seeing or hearing none, the clerk will tally and display the vote. Item passes unanimously, brings us down to item 11.4. Looking for a motion and support to authorize the submission of the 2022-2023 Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development.
So moved.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion on the item? Seeing or hearing none, the clerk will tally and display the vote. Item passes unanimous. Brings us down to 11.5, looking for a motion and support to approve the award for the 60-inch interceptor cleaning and televising engineering contract for Fishbeck of Lansing, Michigan, in the amount of $73,500, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the appropriate documents in accordance with the purchasing agreement.
Support.
Moved and supported. Legs racing. Any discussion? Seeing or hearing none, the clerk will tally and display the vote. Item passes unanimous, brings us down to 11.6. Looking for a motion and support to approve the first reading on an amendment to Section 4.4, Chapter 4 of the City Code of Ordinances to change the word poisonous to venomous to better describe the prohibition of owning of certain reptiles within the city of Jackson.
So moved.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion?
Yes. I would like to see another part of this ordinance changed. Also, Section 4-4D goes the keeping of more than 3 dogs, more than 3 cats, or more than 2 miniature pigs, or any combination of dogs, cats, or miniature pigs totaling more than 3 is prohibited. And anybody who knocks on doors knows that you'll see 3 or 4 or 5 dogs and 3 or 4 or 5 cats and any combination of thereof. I'd like to see that number 3 changed to no more than 5. So if I have, and I don't have any cats, so there is no ethic problem here. If I have 2 cats and 3 dogs, and full disclosure, I have 3 dogs.
You gonna get 2 cats?
I have no desire to get a cat. Then I'm not violating the ordinance. But there is almost every house in this city, or at least 5 houses on every block that is violating this ordinance as it sits. And the other thing I would like to add is the end of that paragraph, it says this does not include dogs or cats less than 4 months old. That means you can have a litter. I would like to see added right after that, or in the possession of an animal rescuer. And then add the definition of animal rescuer. So you can't just say you're an animal rescuer, you have to fit within the definition. So if you were working with the Cascades Humane Society or somebody, there's a group of people right now working to get all these cats picked up and neutered and then put back. Can't remember what the definition, what the acronym is, but I would like to see those changes. And I know that the city police department has an opinion, even though I haven't talked to them about it. I've been told that you have several calls about barking dogs, but I don't know how, I mean, it's just so many people are in violation of this ordinance as it sits.
Chief Hitt?
My opinion is we have bigger things to worry about than pets. But from my experience as a patrol officer, and maybe things have changed, I don't remember a lot of, honestly, dealings with homes that were in excess of the number of allowed pets. And I actually remember taking some enforcement action back in the day on a couple problem properties where it was an issue that they had that many animals. Sanitary issues started to come into play. But outside of that, I don't think we dealt with it, and we don't deal with it a lot today.
But if someone gets mad at their neighbor, guess where they can turn to? Because I can guarantee you, a lot of people have more than 3 animals in their house. So I would like to continue with the motion as it is, and then make a second motion to have the city attorney change, make
Hold on,
some
we gotta take that
recommendations.
one at a time.
No, I know that. I'm just telling you what I'd like to do. I wasn't making a second motion. I was going to do that after the first one, because venomous and poisonous came from a constituent, actually.
Okay. So just for clarification, at the end of that, it says, unless permitted, I'm gonna have to look at the language. I just want to make sure individuals who are like permitted to own those animals like that may be venomous. Do you see what I'd have to look it up.
Poison is something, from the constituent that brought this up, I think they're a science teacher. And they said poison is something that's ingested, venomous is something where it's
They bite you.
injected.
Yeah, if poisonous, you can't eat them safely. That's probably what they're getting at.
Right. So I'm not-
Unless applicable state
I don't
liquor
know.
licenses are.
They don't think you should have a snake that bites you and
I just-
puts poison in you,
Yeah,
like a rattlesnake.
You know,
Some people are gonna come out of the woodwork going like, no,
Yeah.
yes.
yeah, okay.
That's not gonna happen.
I'm good on the,
Okay.
I'm good. Any other questions on the current motion on the floor? Seeing or hearing none. Clerk will tally and display the vote. Passes unanimously. Laura, do you want to follow up?
Yeah,
with-
I'd make a motion to ask that the city attorney address paragraph, section 4-4, paragraph D, with regard to the total number of animals allowed, and adding some words that refer to animal rescuers, along with the definition of animal rescuer. And bring it back to council for the next meeting. That's my motion.
Okay, hearing no second, the motion dies. Okay. That takes care of 11.6, brings us down to 11.7. Looking for a motion and support to approve the first reading and amendment to section 14-42.1, chapter 14 of the city code, to include a provision confirming certificates of compliance are transferable as between owners of a rental property, and authorize city attorney to make minor modifications.
So moved.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion on the item? Seeing or hearing none, the clerk will tally and display the vote. Item passes unanimously, brings us down to 11.8. Looking for a motion and support to approve the purchase of a 2024 Pierce fire engine at a cost of not to exceed $850,000, where the funds would be obligated from the city's American Rescue Plan Act funds.
So moved.
Support.
Move and support. Any discussion on the item?
None for me.
Seeing or hearing none, the clerk will tally and display the vote. New fire truck underway. Brings us down to 11.9. Looking for a motion and support to approve the One Global M3 mechanical street sweeper from M-Tech Company of Cleveland, Ohio, at a cost of $270,502 with $149,797 to be funded by the city local recovery funds under the American Rescue Plan Act, and the remaining $120,705 to be funded with motor pool funds if excess funds remain after the final payments are made for previously approved motor pool equipment funded by city local recovery funds under the American Rescue Plan Act. Those remaining funds will be utilized before using motor pool funds for the balance of the street sweeper purchase.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any discussion?
It's a conspiracy theory afoot. In order to get them to sell me on this, they invited me over to DPW and then drug the broken one in off the street as it was working. And said, "This is why we need a new one." Mike set it up. I know we did.
I thought you were gonna say they drugged you.
That's what it sounded like, too.
Kind of where it sounded like he was alluding to.
There I am, and all of a sudden, the broken one comes driving in, and it's like, oh, okay, I see what's happening.
Does this represent the balance of the ARPA funds that we've received or been?
It doesn't, we're not exhausting all of them with this, but it is coming from the previous allocation you guys made in April.
Any other questions, concerns from council?
None for me.
Okay. Seeing or hearing none, the clerk will tally and display the vote.
Constituents will be happy.
Looks like that ploy to show them the broke one worked.
Maybe, maybe not.
New street sweeper underway. Brings us down to item number 12, council member comments. Council member Gunn.
Oh, starting with me. I have no comments tonight.
Okay. Council member Dancy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, I'd just like to thank Karen for her service, her time being here. Good luck in the future. Have fun. You can always come back, maybe, and just enjoy. I thank, just thank staff for everything that they do and all the hard work they put in. I thank, the people coming out with their comments. Just appreciate the back and forth, not back and forth, but just listen to what citizen has to say. A lot of important things. Just want to say thank you. Harold White breakfast in the morning, bright and early, 7:30. Be there and have fun. Peace out.
At the King Center.
At the King Center. Thank you very much.
Vice Mayor.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of things. Mrs. White with trespassing, is anyone going to follow up with her on those issues? Yeah.
Madam Vice Mayor, my office has been in communication with Ms. White. In fact, my paralegal Karen McKay had texted me during the course of the meeting to give me an update as to where things stand. Generally speaking, this is generally civil trespass issues. The police will trespass someone when they actually encounter the person on someone else's property and it's provable. If they're not there to actually witness the trespass, that's a different scenario. If someone's throwing debris or watering someone's lawn, things like that, it's typically a civil matter. But we do have a pending case in the district court, and there is a pretrial, as I understand it, scheduled for this Thursday. And my office has been in communication with Ms. White. I've seen the correspondence.
Okay, very good.
And I'm certainly happy to meet and discuss any other issues she may have myself.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. And then special thanks to staff, council, and the residents for your participation tonight. I do know there's a couple of staff members that I've had talked to. The cemeteries is one specifically that took care of the issue I was having. So I really do appreciate you, and I know I may reach out from home or send you a text or email, whatever it is, but I do appreciate you all. And then I just want to wish Karen all the best, wishing you well in your new endeavors. Best of luck and all of those great things to go along with it. I have enjoyed serving with you. I have to go back and get my notes together, keeping track of how many. I had a number. Laura helped me do it. Now I've lost that number, but I do want to go back and get my list together to say how many council members that I've served with over the 10 years. Be 10 years in December. So I've seen people come and go. And so enjoy yourself. Lansing's a lot bigger than Jackson, but I'm sure you can handle it. All right, thank you.
Councilmember Forgrave.
Karen, it's been a pleasure working with you for the last 3 years. And if we need to update that proclamation with that updated number and re-sign it, I'm happy to do that too. But really, best of luck and congratulations. It has been a pleasure serving with you and sitting next to you all these years.
Councilmember Schlechte.
Haha. Gonna save you for last. Can we ask the clerk to put in the minutes like the request that the council asks of different staff people? Like if we ask Jonathan or if we ask Matt or something like that, so that it's in there and it's kind of a tickler or a reminder? Is that something that we can be part of the minutes? Something specific, if we ask for something specific during our council member comments or something.
I think that's as simple as just asking for it to be reflected in the minutes.
Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Madam Clerk.
So the answer is yes.
So typically the minutes reflect the motions that were offered and result on that. That's typically what the minutes have historically been. But if that is something that council would like to have recorded in the minutes.
Sorry.
So typically minutes, it's just a record of the motions that were made and how the vote turned out. If there are requests made of staff, I guess it's really kind of council's choice. Typically, what has been the history is if it's a request, it's not something that needs to be made a motion, so it's not recorded in the minutes because it's not a motion. But I guess it's up to you guys as a body. If that's what you would want, then I can oblige that.
I mean, there have been requests that people have made that I think have gotten dropped. And unless you make the request, you don't really necessarily remember about it. I just personally think it would be a good idea.
I think it just goes back to preference of each individual council member, if they want to make the request to the individual staff member directly or kind of on this forum. So I guess.
I'm going to go to the parliamentarian first.
A motion doesn't have to pass for it to be reflected in the minutes, right? It just needs to be made.
Correct.
So if you wanted it in the minutes, you would just have to do it in the form of a motion every time you request something of staff.
I do think, so in my experience outside of the city, when during the course of the meeting, if there's a request for a specific item, to be reflected in the minutes. And I think that would have to be like this, you know, a statement of that sort. I would like my comments to be reflected in the minutes. I would like this request to be reflected in the minutes. I don't see anything wrong with that. I think that if that request is made, that's a reasonable request for me for it to be reflected in the minutes if requested. Sometimes, you know, especially this weird thing of like looking back at history and like looking back through years of different meeting minutes. It's hard to pick up the context of certain things if the only thing that's in the minutes are the motions that are made.
Mhm.
So I definitely agree that if it's requested by a person speaking at that time, that if that request is made, I would like the following to be reflected, or I would like my comment to be reflected in the minutes, that comment, that request be honored. I think that's a reasonable request. And sometimes it gets a little dicey because I had a whole dissertation across the street that I requested to be reflected in the minutes, and it was so long that they called me like, can we paraphrase? And I was like, no, put every word that I said in the minutes, please, because 20 years from now, I would like every word to be able to be read. So I definitely understand the importance of being able to make that request.
So the next two items I would like reflected in the minutes, because I would like our constituents to understand how much we're putting towards patching, the patching cost.
Yep.
And whether you bring it to us as a consent item or whatever, I don't care. I just think it's good to put that public and the public domain, and same with the demolition numbers, because I'm tired of hearing people say that, you know, 600 houses have been demoed or whatever it is, and nobody really knows what the number is. At least since, let's put a time frame, 2012. Okay, January 1 of 2012. We got that email from the constituent, and this isn't the first person that has indicated that trees are very, very dangerous. And if you, I know you're going for a grant or something, or you got it, I don't know. But if we could get updated on what's happening with the trees, that would be a nice thing, because I know that it's years of neglect, nothing that you've done. And I know Mike's department is out there working their tail off, and I know you've put extra money towards the trees. But I was sitting in my parking lot and I saw one of the city trees that really needs to be trimmed up around one of my properties. So, but I hate to ask because you guys are overworked. So if I can just take a chance, I'll take care of it. And I want to welcome Beth Kuiper, who's the new DDA director. She's in the audience. So, welcome. I'm anxious to get my daughter back. Yeah. And then Karen, you're going to miss it. That's all I got to say. You're going to regret getting married. You're going to no, I'm just kidding. You will miss us. Are we all invited to the wedding?
No.
Oh. That was pretty concise.
Only 16 people are invited, so it's
Oh,
a pretty
all right.
elite list
Okay.
of invitees.
I just saved myself some money.
Yeah.
It was going to be a really good gift, too.
That's okay.
Okay.
You can send me a Christmas card.
That's all I got. Thank you.
Okay. I'm sorry, Madam Clerk. That's going to be a lot of writing.
Mine are two simple things.
That was simple. Tonight.
Patching costs and demo numbers. That's all the rest of it I didn't need documented.
So I do have a couple questions that I'm not asking for answers for tonight, just so that we can have some clarification for the concerned citizens of our community who spoke tonight, just around like pallet shelters, the purchase of those pallet shelters, and like where they'll be placed, when they'll be placed there. I know that they are part of the puzzle.
Excuse
of
me,
what,
Mr. Mayor.
He can go.
Oh,
You forgot. Unless you were saving her for after you.
No, I wasn't. No,
almost
I
thinking it
wasn't.
was
I wasn't. I was
I-
just trying to forget that she's leaving.
Okay.
She already resigned. She is a thing of the past. No, I'm sorry, Councilmember Bunnell. Thank you.
I was gonna say, I mean, you really were saving the best for last.
No. I'll try to keep it, I'll keep it as short as I can, because I know Freddie's got things he wants to do, I'm sure.
Yep.
Not going to the wedding, so.
I know, he's not, yeah. No, it really has been a great 3-ish years. Yeah, you'll want to fix that.
That's a scribbler's error.
That's okay. I'll forgive you. But it really has been a really great experience being up here. I'm sure a handful of people have told me when I first started that you don't realize what you're getting into. It is a thankless job, but it's worth it. All the things that I have voted on over the last 3 years, that's a lot of things I've voted on. Obviously, some didn't make some people happy, and I know some did make people happy, but you can't please everyone, as we all know up here. But it's been great working with all of my fellow council members up here, council members that are now gone. Derek Doby's out there. It was obviously, as he mentioned, we didn't agree on a lot of things, but that's okay. My politics have shifted since Derek has left anyway, which I'm sure he's happy about. But it's been great, and I appreciate everyone up here. I appreciate our city manager, all of our city staff. I will miss our city staff, all of our department heads that I've worked with over the years. I will miss everybody. I will still be here a few days a week commuting to work. Tuesdays, I tell people Tuesdays are one of my days that I commute. So I will make it to a council meeting or two just to throw you guys off and sit in the audience wishing I could vote on things that I can't vote on. So yeah, that's it for me. Now you can go.
My bad. I seriously was trying to forget that you're leaving. So I'll start my comments over again. And I'll start with you, not end with you, so I don't forget anything. Karen, you were, I think, the first council person that I sat down and talked to after being elected. I made it a point to sit down with every person on council so that I could get an understanding of what their concerns are. Because I feel like you are the representation of what your ward wants, which is why you got elected. So just a reminder of those issues that we talked about, because I keep notes on pretty much every conversation and meeting that I have with people. So we talked about crime reduction and crime prevention, and I think that we've done a pretty good job at working towards reducing crime in the community. I mean, statistically, year over year in the last 2 years, we've seen crime be reduced in the last 2 years. Domestic violence issues, which I know we haven't quite started touching on that, but that's all enveloped in that violence in the community issue, and I think that we definitely have to start paying more attention to how domestic violence plays a part in violence in the community as well. That's a super important thing. Drug prevention, and your statement that a majority of the cost to the fire department is for overdoses. We talked about poverty. That's an issue that I feel like we are maybe indirectly but still trying to address, right? Infrastructure, lighting in the community, a community cleanup. We've done a couple of those. Outreach to lower income population, to get and give information out in a transparent way. I think that we've done a fantastic job at that. Homelessness issues, which we are addressing head on, and doing at least what we can do from the seats that we sit in. We didn't quite get to that Project Green Light. We haven't gotten a grocery store yet, and we don't have a gas station yet. So I just want you to know that your absence doesn't mean that these issues will go away, because we know that these are issues that you brought to the table because of your affiliation and relationships inside the ward. So I just want to say thank you for being such a good council person and being such a good representative for Ward 5 in your 3-ish years of serving. So thank you, would be my comments again. And good luck. I will definitely make sure that I send a very stern text to my friend in Lansing to say, please get her involved quickly, but take good care of you as well. So good luck, and I'm sure we will see you again soon. Back to my couple questions about the pallet shelters. Really just need some information on like where they'll be placed and when they'll be placed, because they do fit inside of the puzzle of us trying to figure out like what can we do as city council, and that was really the main conversation, and the fact that people who are homeless have so many different nuances to why they're homeless and what they're comfortable doing. I do think that a part, and I just want to state this because I do feel like this is just an issue when it comes to homelessness in general. A part of the issue that they're not quickly adopted. I mean, the city manager and I just earlier today was texted an article from, I can't remember what community it was from, but about like some tiny homes that look very similar to these pallet shelters. But I think a part of the problem is NIMBY. You guys know what that is? Not in my backyard. I don't want them downtown because I got a business there. I don't want them in my community because I live there. I don't want them near my business because I do business there, but I want them to go somewhere else. People are completely fine with homeless people being sheltered in alleyways, behind buildings where they're tucked away and they can't be seen, under some bridge somewhere that they can just drive by and act like they're not there. But for them to be camped, it all of a sudden becomes a huge issue where we are trying to destroy an entire ward because they have no idea what's coming to them. And I think that is the problem. And that's a portion of the problem that we're facing with us trying to take action to do something about homelessness in our community in the first place. That's just how I feel about it. That would pretty much sum up my comments, aside from the fact that I'm really excited about all of the fall activities that the community will be able to enjoy, all of the festivals that we see happening in the fall. And I just want to put a challenge out for us to keep the momentum going into the winter time, for somebody to put a winter fest together. I'm speaking it into the atmosphere, and I know that the proper people who are supposed to hear it are hearing it. Congratulations to Beats in the Park. I don't know if they're watching the meeting, but they had a phenomenal event. It was a very, very dope event, something great for our young people to get out and get involved with. And I can see that being a growing staple in the downtown area. I mean, it was a ton of vendors out there. They had a ton of acts and a ton of support from it. And that would be all of my comments. Mr. City Manager.
Just 2 comments tonight. Thank you, Karen. It's been an honor to serve you in these last 3 years. That will be corrected. We came in together, pandemic buddies, so sad to see you leave, but congratulations and all the best in your future. And then there is a cleanup day, October 14th, 7:30 to 12 at DPW. Information is on the city website, on our face page, and Instagram for directions on how to enter and exit the dump day. So that's all I had. Thank you very much.
So move.
Support.
Ah, yes, it is. Go green.